Hello, astronomer friends. We are back with lesson 4. Now, we are going to talk about what we have learned so far. So let's review, shall we? Okay, so let's think. Last lesson, we studied stars. What were some facts that we knew about stars or learned about stars? They're really, really far away. They're not really teeny tiny, are they? They're super large. They don't really twinkle, do they? It's just the gas. They're made of gas. They don't really fall through the sky. They're not shooting like a shooting star because that's a meteorite, right? What else? I'm trying to think of what else. They're thousands of years away from us, right? So those lots of different things we've learned about our stars so far. So all of these facts we know only because of the work of an astronomer. Remember, an astronomer is somebody who studies space and stars and things like that. If you believe what you see in the night sky, you might think that stars are tiny and they twinkle. But we also know that that's not true, right? We also might believe they only come out, but we also know that's not true. And we can thank scientists who study stars, which are astronomers, for helping us learn that that's not true. They use observatories and telescopes, and they've learned many different things by using these tools to study that stars are not actually tiny, they're actually big. They don't really twinkle, it's the gas. So astronomers have taught us lots and lots of things. So now we're going to take a step back thousands of years ago in ancient times, way before any of us were born, okay? And before astronomy had began, okay? So today we're going to really go far back. So ancient people often told stories or myths to explain how events occurred. Several ancient cultures believed in many gods and goddesses. So they thought those gods and goddesses were responsible for controlling like events in nature, like the weather or things like that. Okay, how the moon rises, how it sets things, stars, full moons, all that stuff. So many of the myths and stories ancient cultures have told feature these gods and goddesses. But since ancient times, tools have been invented to study space in a scientific way, right? So scientists that study outer space are called astronomers. And the study of outer space is astronomy. In ancient times, people didn't know very much about outer space. They only knew what they could see. So if they could only see like we do, and we go outside and look up, there's not much that they knew, right? So these ancient people made up stories or myths about what they saw when they looked up in the sky. So today we're going to listen. I lost my spot. Sorry, guys. We're going to learn about what ancient people saw and when they looked up at the stars, and we're going to talk about why we see pictures in the sky and how they outline, things like that, all from the ancient traditions and stories, okay? So get your listening ears on. I'm going to share. We got to go over our vocabulary first, guys. So let's do that. All right, here we go. We are going to talk about stargazing and constellations today. Now, stargazing is watching the stars or studying the stars, and constellations are when you have a bunch of stars together that make up like a picture and stuff. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Oh, here we go. Advances. Make sure I'm on the right one. Modern improvements, progress. With advances in medicine, babies get shots to protect them from many terrible diseases. Ancient, very, very old or long, long ago. In ancient times, Egyptians built the pyramids. Celestial bodies. Any object, including planets, stars, comets, or meteors that can be found in outer space. The sun, the moon, and other stars are examples of celestial bodies. Constellations, certain groups of stars in the sky that seem to form specific shapes or outlines of pictures. Last summer, my dad showed me how to find different constellations. Now, this picture you're seeing on the screen right now is either the Little Dipper or the Big Dipper. I'm not sure which one that is, but you can see how it kind of looks like a big spoon. Myths, stories that people tell to explain things in nature or to teach people how to act. In ancient, some people believed in myths about a sun god who ruled over the world. All right, so let's get started. Should we or shall we? Let's. Thousands of years ago, people had no telescopes or rocket ships. Although people back then did not have the tools and knowledge that we have today, they were just as curious about the stars and other celestial bodies, so objects found out in space. The ancient Greeks, Arabs, Romans, Chinese, Egyptians, Turks, Mayans, Babylonians, and countless others who lived long time ago all studied the stars and tried to figure out what they were and why they were there. Although they didn't know what the stars were made of or how far away they really were, the ancient people named the stars and mapped them out. We actually still use the names for these stars today. They figured out which star appeared in the sky during certain times of the year, and even though thousands of years have passed on Earth, the stars have basically remained the same. In other words, when you look up at the stars at night, you are seeing the very same stars the ancient Arabs and countless others saw as well. So it's hard to believe that in our outer space, it's changed very little in all those years. So when I'm saying long time ago, like 1600s, 1500s, 1700s, long time ago, okay? Because we're in the 2000s now. So that's a long time ago. The ancient Greeks believed that the stars had been placed in the sky by gods, as if by magic, in order to tell stories and teach lessons, and these stories, they're called myths. The Greeks identified certain groups of stars in the night sky that seemed to form a specific shape. These shapes are called constellations. So the names of the pictures that we saw of the stars, that's a constellation. In the United States, Europe, and many other parts of the world, we still call the stars by the names that the ancient Greeks or Arabs used long ago. So here you can look. There's a star. See how each star has a point somewhere on this person or this creature? And that's a constellation. This group of stars makes up a constellation. So this is a picture of the Big Dipper. Okay, I told you I wasn't sure if it was the big or little. This one is the Big Dipper. And it's not actually a constellation by itself, but part of a larger constellation called Big Bear. And that's why it's referred to as a group of stars, okay? One of the first groups of stars that young stargazers in the United States learn about is also the easiest one to spot. The Big Dipper looks like a giant soup ladle in the sky. So it looks like a pot with a handle too. The Big Dipper is made up of 7 stars. The Big Dipper looks different in the sky depending on the time of the year. So remember, our Earth spins and it rotates around, so it's going to look different times of the year. Sometimes the Big Dipper looks right side up, sometimes it looks upside down, and sometimes it appears to be standing on its handle. That is not because the Big Dipper moves, but because the Earth is rotating on its axis and revolving around the sun. So depending on what time of the year it is, this image is going to be different. So it might be upside down, might be sideways, we don't know. Just depends on the time of year. So I guess you could go outside tonight and try to find the Big Dipper and see if it looks like this, if it's upside down, or if it's on its head. We'll see. The Big Dipper has a friend called the Little Dipper. The Little Dipper also contains 7 stars. The bright star at the end of the handle is special. It's called Polaris, or the North Star. Unlike Other celestial bodies, the North Star basically stays in the same place in the sky as we observe it from Earth, always to the north. And this is the star we're talking about right here. Since ancient times, people have relied on this star to find their way in the world. Knowing which way is north is the first step to figuring out which direction you are heading. Christopher Columbus and other sailors used to look for the North Star on starry nights out on the wide ocean. So because Polaris is always in the north sky, Columbus could use it like a compass to navigate his ships. So he could either figure out if he wanted to go north, he would head toward the star. If he wanted to go south, he'd head away from the star, east and west. This picture shows one of the most famous constellations of all, Orion. Ancient Greeks told stories or myths about Orion, the famous hunter. So remember, a myth is a story that people tell to explain things in nature or to teach how to behave. Don't forget that. The constellation Orion is known all over the world. The constellation itself contains 8 stars. Orion's belt, made up of the 3 stars in a row across his body, here, is the easiest to spot. As you can see, it takes a little imagination to look at these stars and see a hunter. The single star in the upper left is imagined to be the beginning of a raised arm, which is holding a club or a sword. With his other arm, imagine it is to extend from another single star. He holds a shield. Okay, so basically they say, like, this is his body, this is his belt, these are his legs, and then this is his arm holding like a sword or a club, like raised up above his arm. And then on this side, it's like his hand holding up a shield. So that's why they call him Orion the Hunter. All right, let's keep going. Where was I? According to one myth, Orion bragged he was such a good hunter that he could kill all the animals on Earth. The gods decided to punish him by creating Scorpio, a giant scorpion that Orion could not defeat. So here is supposed to be like a scorpion tail. If you've ever seen a scorpion, it's kind of like a little, almost like a little kind of crab looking thing, but kind of like a spider looking thing, but it's got a tail that curls up and it's got a sharp point at the end. So this is supposed to be the body of the scorpion, and then this is the tail of the scorpion. Not far from the Orion constellation is Taurus, which shows the head and horns of a mighty bull. It is often said that the hunter Orion is fighting the bull Taurus. So according to the myths, Orion has a tough time up there. He's being chased by a giant scorpion. At the same time, he's fighting a giant bull. So here's Orion. Here is, I think this is supposed, I don't know. So here's the bull, here's his horns, and then this is supposed to be the body. The horns. Okay, where was I? Fortunately, Orion has a couple of friends, his 2 loyal hunting dogs. Canis Major, this is Canis Major, and Canis Minor. So Canis in Latin means dogs, and major means big, and minor means small. I wonder why this one's called major and this one's called minor, because they're small and big. All right, these dogs follow Orion through the sky, helping him fight Taurus the bull. There are 88 major constellations, and most people around the world use the same basic list. When these constellations were first named, most ancient people could only guess what stars actually were. Ancient people told stories and myths based on what they could see with their own eyes when they looked up in the sky. But we have learned that there is much more to space than meets the eye. In fact, sometimes when we look into outer space, our eyes can play tricks on us. The first astronomers began using mathematics and science to provide different kinds of explanations than the myths that ancient people told to describe what they saw in the sky. Rather than make up stories, astronomers developed hypotheses or scientific guesses based on facts they discovered about space. For example, ancient people saw that the sun rose on one side of the sky in the morning and set on the other side of the sky in the evening. Seeing the sun's movement across the sky caused ancient people to believe that the sun moved while the earth stood still. Ancient Greeks and Arabs, and in fact, most people in the world, believed that everything in the universe, including the sun and all the stars, revolved around the earth. It took thousands of years before anyone believed that the opposite was true, that the earth, in fact, revolved around the sun. We know that the sun doesn't move at all, does it? Stays right there, and we go around the sun. This discovery was made by early astronomer named Nicholas Copernicus. It's a little hard to say. Copernicus was the first to use science to explain that Earth actually revolves around the sun. Unfortunately, hardly anyone believed him at the time. That was about 500 years ago. Another astronomer named Galileo came after Copernicus, and he believed what he said about the Earth revolving around the sun. He invented telescopes that helped astronomers prove that Copernicus's theory was true. So we know what a telescope is. It helps us see into space, right? It's like a big magnifying glass. Although Galileo did not invent the first telescope, he did invent very powerful telescopes that helped him and other astronomers make many discoveries about space. For this reason, he is considered by many to be the father of modern astronomy. Since the time of these early astronomers, people have gained an incredible amount of knowledge about the stars and the universe, and now use tools like telescopes to expand the knowledge each day. Copernicus and Galileo would be amazed by the advances or progress people have made in astronomy over the past century. Compare this incredibly large modern telescope to the one Galileo was holding in the last picture. Astronomers today use telescopes like this one to study the stars and other distant parts of outer space that Galileo may never have imagined. Yet, even as we've gained new knowledge about outer space, our understanding of the stars is still built upon the stories and knowledge passed on by people for thousands of years. Next time you find a constellation in the sky, you will know that other stargazers have been studying and telling stories about the same group of stars for thousands and thousands of years. All right, friends, now let's review what we've learned today so you can answer your questions. All right, let's think here. Were the stars that the ancient civilizations observed at night different or the same as the ones today? They're the same. The ancient Greeks believed that gods put certain groups of stars together in the sky in order to make pictures that would tell stories and teach lessons. What are these pictures called? Constellations. The three stories, I need to go back. Hold on, guys. Oh, there we go. All right, the three stars, I can't talk today. Okay, this constellation is called Orion. These three stars right here form a famous piece of Orion's clothing. What do they form? His belt. Good. Okay, so now, what is special about Polaris, the North Star? It always stays north, making it a good star to use for navigation. All right, let's see. All right, so we learned about an important astronomer named Galileo. What invention did he improve upon that helped astronomers make new discoveries? telescopes. All right, now we also learned about another astronomer, and he discovered that the Earth doesn't rotate around the sun. I mean, that the sun doesn't rotate around the Earth, but that we, the Earth, rotate around the sun. Who was the astronomer? Copernicus. I can't say it. I'm going to spell it for you. C-O-P-E-R-N-I-C-U-S. Copernicus. There we go. I butchered that name all day today. All right, friends, go answer your questions in Google Classroom, and I will see you guys on lesson 5. Bye, friends.